All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ramses Madhu, Division Manager of Planning, Policy, and Sustainability here at the Department of Transportation in the city of San Jose. I am joined by Brian Stanky, our project manager for the Airport Connector, here and presenting our work today. Very excited to see so many of you here. We have just to hit 100 participants in this presentation here, and we've had over 130 different companies actually download the RFP itself, which is pretty exciting. But we are here to talk about the Airport Connector, San Jose Airport Connector's request for proposal, and let's dig in. All right, let's see if I can get the slides to work right. There we go. All right, we're going to start with a few words of intro from some of our leaders, and start off with John Rizzo, our Director of Transportation.
Thank you, Ramses, and really excited to have so many people attending this. This is an important project for the city of San Jose. We really are looking for a private partner to help us really to develop, build, and operate a real connection between San Jose Mineta International Airport and our downtown Diridon Station, where a lot of things are going to be happening in that station. So this partnership we're trying to build here really is going to be important for us to be able to deliver on this project. So it's exciting to see so many people interested in this. It will be a great project. We're looking for a great partner to help us do that. We have commitment all the way from mayor and council through the Department of Transportation and the airport to actually make this a really successful project. So we're looking forward to this process and where we can select a great partner for the rest of the time to develop and build and operate this whole system. I think, am I just turning it over to Scott?
That's right. Scott, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. You want to take it from here?
Sure. Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. I am Scott Whitner. I'm Deputy Director of Aviation at San Jose's Mineta International Airport. I'm here today representing our Director of Aviation, John Aiken, and our Assistant Director, Judy Ross, both of whom are away at an industry conference this week. So you are stuck with me, but I'm delighted to be here to represent them and be part of this discussion about a really exciting project for us. So while this is not an airport project and federal regulations sort of limit our ability to officially be involved, particularly financially in the project, naturally, it is an airport project in the sense that, we are very excited about any project that generates or makes it easier for folks to access the airport. And particularly with the tremendous growth on the horizon, not far on the horizon, downtown in the Diridon Station area and downtown west, we're extremely excited about this possibility of a direct rail or some other form of transit connection to all of that development to here at the airport. So we're in a really special position, being one of the few major international downtown airports in the country. And the fact that we can connect people to points all around the world, and we're only just a few miles or kilometers, depending on how you measure, from the downtown center. And that provides developers an incredible opportunity. I think the only piece that's really missing from that is a reliable transit connection to connect that development center and our world-class airport. So we're excited to see what the proposers have to bring to the table here. And as John said, we're excited to find a partner in that effort. And so to the degree the airport can be part of that process, and we have been since the beginning in coordination with John and his team, Ramses and Brian, and the airport will continue to collaborate to make sure this is a successful effort. Also here to answer any questions that come up that the airport can answer. And I think that's it, unless there's anything else, John, Ramses, or Brian, you wanted me to cover.
No, that's it, Scott. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, John and Scott, for introing the project and kind of showing some of our higher level commitment. I think it's really important to stress that, right? The city is lined up and committed to make this project be successful. We're taking a new approach here to the way that projects are developed in San Jose and potentially in the industry. I know we're trying to follow this development of pre-development agreements and how we function through this project, and we're trying to take the lessons learned there. And we know that it's really important for us as the city to express to all of you that we're here to make sure that this happens, from day one all the way to the project's operation. All right, so let's keep going here. We're going to talk a little bit about, intro some of our folks, as well as get into the objectives of this meeting, really go into the project and procurement overview, bidding and proposals, talk a bit about the evaluation and scoring that your potential bids would go through, and then go through some of the PDA phases so you kind of understand at a high level how we're seeing some of these important elements. We expect the presentation to take maybe 30-40 minutes, and we've left somewhat as much time as we need to field questions that all of you might have for us. All right, so quickly, the project team. I'm the project principal on this. I've been been steering this project for the last few years. I'm very fortunate to have Brian Stanky to take over the project management role. You want to say hi, Brian?
Sure. Thank you, Ramses. Had a bit of a Zoom hiccup there. Yeah, I'll be covering the discussion of the RFP process and evaluation in a few minutes. Glad to see everyone here and look forward to moving ahead.
And then Ryan Sheelan from the airport is our project contact, our day-to-day project contact at the airport. He is also on vacation. Seems like the airport's vacation moment right now, but he is our kind of constant contact there. So I wanted to make sure you knew who the internal primary team is. Now, importantly, this might be the city project team, but we have an incredible group supporting us in doing this. We have the Arab team led by Alfonso. Are you here? I think you're here somewhere, as well as the Ashurst legal support team led by Anna Hermelian. I've been just an incredible team helping us develop this very extensive RFP that you're all hopefully getting through in parallel to this. All right, so part of what we want to do with a pre-bid meeting is get folks a chance to understand who else is out there. That's why we left this open as well. It does look like we hit 100 participant limit. So we do also have a recording for those who might have some team members who aren't able to get in. But we will be sharing the registration list for this around with folks who came in. If you wish your name and company not to be on that list, please do contact the city through the general procurement address here, which is also on the RFP as the primary contact line. And please do so by June 9th, and we'll be sending out the list on the 10th. Okay, so what are we here to talk about? Well, we're ostensibly here to talk about the airport connector. But for the city, this project represents something bigger than just this one project. San Jose is the 10th largest city in the country, potentially the 11th. Austin is trying to beat us out population at the moment. And we are very challenged transit-wise. We do not have enough transit for us to meet our urbanization goals, our climate goals, our equity goals. We know we need a great deal more transit. We also know that the way that we're delivering transit at the moment is too expensive to be scalable at the pace we need to meet our goals. So part of this project for us is bringing a new approach to transit project delivery and operations. We're hoping that this becomes the first leg of a larger expanding system over time. And you'll see if you've been reading the RFP or have been in conversations with us already, you know that we're really trying to push on what it means, what the different roles of the private and public are, and how to bring in partners as early as possible to help diminish costs and manage projects better. But what we are working on now is the airport connector. So the project that we're out there with the RFP for is a 3 to 4 mile transit segment that starts at Diridon Station and ends at Terminal B at a minimum, right? So that's Terminal B. If you guys know San Jose Airport, that's the Southwest Terminal. We have not decided on an exact alignment yet. We can see in the outline on the map, kind of brown outline. That's our kind of what we call our search space. The green element there, Columbus Park in the middle, is new information. That is area we must avoid right in the middle there. So that's the project segment. Now, we do have an option, defined option in the RFP, a required option for an interterminal segment. So we do need to, yeah, so that's very important to us. And importantly, we are open to augmentations of this segment, this primary segment from Terminal B to Diridon, such as other stops along the way, let's say maybe at a well-used shopping mall in the middle of this segment and things like that, as long as it doesn't diminish the overall quality of the service between the airport and the transit station. And again, importantly, we are looking for future expansion. So we're definitely looking at technology questions around expansion. Right? There are certain technologies that are perfect for this kind of application, but have very little application outside of this kind of alignment. And that's something that would not be of interest to the city. We need to make sure that this kind of system that's being developed through this project can take on larger quantities of passengers, as well as more complicated urban environments, as we hope to see this expand. All right, so what are we looking for, right? I've kind of stressed, kind of for us at least, it's innovative. We're doing a P3 delivery model for this. The city of San Jose hasn't done a lot of these, but has done a few. Actually, the airport is the prime example of that. And what we're looking for, right? So right now we're putting out this RFP ultimately for an at-risk system, but this is really for an at-risk phased pre-development agreement. A pre-development agreement is a somewhat newer term in getting projects like this done, and is quite fuzzy, right? So we're going to try and give you a little bit more of a sense of what it means for us on this project through this whole presentation. But at a high level, what we want to do is leverage what you all know and bring that innovation and know-how in to the very beginning of these projects, right? We have a very broad definition of this project so far. What we want to do as soon as we actually start putting pen to paper in terms of design, in terms of process, and all of in terms of technology selection, we want your guys' know-how in from the beginning. We want to engage a developer through the entire life cycle of the project, right? We want to have the same team helping us develop the project, design the project, then deliver, finance, and operate it, right? So we want to see an overall life cycle, ownership stake from a private entity. And we believe that that's going to offer a great deal of value, right? That both sides of this relationship are really driving towards a successful program from a similar perspective right from day one. And then we really are trying to minimize the amount of public funding that's needed for this. Now, that's both in terms of trying to keep the costs down, as well as trying to see how much risk and capital that the private market can come in, can bring in. Right, it's one of the things that we learned through earlier steps in this process, that there seems to be a lot more private capital that's willing to take a bet in transit right now. That, I'm going to pass it over to Brian to talk through the bidding process.
Thank you, Ramses. As Ramses mentioned, this is a multi-step PDA. So right now we're in the RFP phase with the submissions due in August. We're aiming to go through the evaluation and have up to 2 preferred proposers selected by the end of the year, at which point we would award the first phase of the PDA. Phase 1 would be about a 6 to 9 month period, where it's really about further building out that project proposal with a project plan, and then a verification of the transit proposal, and then the business case behind it. So we envision at the end of that feasibility validation period, we would down select to the final proposer, in which case we would enter phase 2 of the PDA with that one private partner. Phase 2 is really the heart of the project development, where we're nailing down project description, conceptual engineering, environmental approvals, so we can get to that construction ready project. At the tail end of phase 2, we're actually starting up phase 3, which is developing and finalizing that implementation agreement, where we are setting the final financing and funding plan, the construction and operations agreements, and the project approval to go into construction. So at the end of those, we go into the implementation phase with the construction, and then the agreement for a set period of time for operations that's set in that implementation agreement. Thanks, Travis. So questions and responses, all questions will be submitted through our city's procurement platform portal. It does allow comments to be directly submitted. We will be reviewing those and responding either with direct response, single response to a question, or issuing addendums to the RFP. July 22nd is the deadline for those questions. Now, any questions submitted via Bidingo in writing, those are public, as well as the responses. So if proposers have questions where they feel like the question itself reveals proprietary information, they have the opportunity to ask those orally at the one-on-one meetings. Our responses to the series of one-on-one meetings are public, but those are a chance to ask questions that aren't either here at this conference or writing through the procurement portal. Go to the next slide, Ramses. Now, the one-on-one meetings, they are not mandatory, but you do have to email Public Works Procurement to request those. And I believe it's in our RFP schedule. About 2 weeks before the week of July 11th, we will be responding to only those parties that have requested to have one-on-one meetings with the schedule for the week of July 1st. We're looking to have 2 meetings for each proposer who is interested. One addressing technical topics and the other for commercial financial topics. Again, these are times where the proposers can come discuss their in-process proposals and put forward questions. And then we will be providing responses to all of the one-on-one meeting questions, through addenda and through responses provided to all the bidders. They are not mandatory, but they're an opportunity for that further discussion before the proposers have to put in their final proposal. Next slide, please. And once we have those, we have about five-step process for the evaluation. I'll be stepping through those in the next slides, but it involves both pass-fail responsiveness and a technical review, and then those volumes where we're going to be scoring against criteria and using that for the ranking of the proposals. The next slide. So on the pass-fail, we just have the responsiveness check, and then also for the technical commercial proposal, the most important part of the proposal, looking at things such as the documentation and the technological maturity. Does the system meet our performance guidelines? does it include both the base project and the option for the intra-airport connector? And then as part of this PDA, we're asking that the transit solution have a total capital cost not to exceed 500 million. This is exclusive of operations, but we're really looking at both a project development implementation process that moves faster and cheaper, but also a technology transit solution that really gets us that bigger bang for the buck. Okay, and then for the scoring, we have there's three sections: the team proposal, technical commercial proposal, and financial. The technical and commercial is the most weighed. Are you providing the right transit solution, the right commercial concept, the right approach to managing that? But because, as I said, we're starting at the very beginning of the process. You're our partner through project development all the way through implementation operations. The team is also very important to us. So that's where we have the team technical experience, financial capacity, project delivery experience. And then on the financial side, this is important because of where we are in the process. It's too early to be looking at the overall cost of the project. We haven't done the project development yet. But here, the financial proposal is looking at the cost caps for reimbursement for phase 1 and phase 2, where how much early capital commitment do project proposers have for the project verification and the project development phases of this project. This is where earlier money is great value to the city, in saying that there's a confidence behind the technical and commercial proposal that the private partner is coming with. And that's why you see those 2,000 points for the financial, and that's when we talk about the cost cap, that's it for the completion of the phase 1 of the PDA and completion of the phase 2 PDA. And Ramses will be covering the exact scope of those phases in a few slides.
Thanks, Brian. I appreciate it. So starting to get the overall sense of how we're going to evaluate and look at the projects. Brian touched just a little bit on the different phases within the PDA process that us and our incredible consultant team have put together. Right, there's three major phases. Right, the first phase is going to be likely with 2 parallel teams, and that's the development of the technical and feasibility phase. We'll talk a little bit more in detail what that looks like in a second. That second phase really is the meat of the project. This is where we're going to be developing the design, the engineering, environmental permit processes, all of the setup, right? And then that third phase is getting us over the finish line in terms of getting an agreement for actually implementing it, and that's where after that where construction and project delivery really gets kicked off. So looking at PDA phase 1, right? So if you are successful, one of the potentially 2 companies that will get through into phase 1, what are we looking at, right? This is the part that's changed a little bit since earlier in our project. So for those of you who have been following what we've been doing from early on, we've expanded this phase into 2 primary tasks. One is really coming up together with a project outline, right? And this is the management of all of the major elements of the project. What is this going to look like from day 1 out until we get the project done? All right, so that's everything from financial management, design management, government entity coordination, public outreach, all of these kinds of things. The second part is the feasibility validation report. If you look through attachment 5 to our PDA, draft PDA in the RFP, you'll see much more detail on this. But this is where we're really going to really kick the tires hard on your proposal, so we know what's really coming in, right? And so this is your technical, really looking into technical feasibility for the companies that, for the groups coming in with technology readiness level in the lower range of acceptable, where folks are maybe not yet at mass market availability of their product. We're really going to be making sure that that technology can get to full maturity and time to make this project work. That commercial structure, right? We're really trying to push on making sure that the commercial structure of this project works. While we want the private sector to take on a lot of risk, the public sector is taking a lot of risk as well. There's a lot of value the public sector is going to be bringing in here. We want this to succeed. And so we're really going to sit together and understand what kind of commercial process and then the financial feasibility behind that, make sure this project really pencils out in the long run. And then, of course, the cost benefit analysis, really understanding how the project is going to play out in the city. All right. So after phase one, we'll down select to a single partner. At that point, we break into phase two, and then eventually, of course, phase three. Phase two, again, is the kind of big design sprint where we're really going to get into really designing this project. I think important parts here are, we've highlighted the kind of four major work streams here, of course, financial and commercial. And this really going to start off with immediately working on what the implementation agreement really looks like, right? And develop that over the period. So we really know what we're getting into in the long term, right? Again, we're looking for a 30-year, a 50-year partner from day one, right? And so we're really trying to get into that agreement. How are we trying to get there? That'll be developed over that time. The technical, right? We're really going to be working on design. We want to get from that schematic design all the way to 100% design in that process. And then permits and environmental, obviously there's EIRs and likely NEPA as well, depending on where money might come from. So we're going to be doing that. And there's also, interactions with the FAA, interactions with Caltrans, and some other bodies as well, including the water agency here, or the water district. And lastly, of course, is outreach. This is going to be a pretty visible project. So really having a good team behind making sure we are communicating with all the stakeholders and the public in general to keep this project in the apple of the public's eye instead of the opposite, as projects sometimes do. It's going to be a big important piece. Now, you'll also see that we've structured this project around off-ramps. We all know that as you develop a project, new information comes to light for both sides, right? And so we have structured this in a way that we are enabling us amicably to leave the project if we need to at various times during development. Of course, we don't want that. It's most certainly not our intention at all, but we believe it's only smart to build these things in and gives everybody a better sense of certainty as to what the kind of checkoffs are throughout the process. And we do, depending on kind of the bid that folks put in under what Brian was talking about in the financial piece, there'll be a building contingent termination payment structure that'll build out of those different off-ramps. And then, of course, phase three is us really sitting down and ironing out the final bits of that implementation agreement, really making sure that our agreement is absolutely ironclad, and that we are all comfortable and happy with that. And that is kind of the process as it is designed. There's a great deal of detail in the RFP. We did spend a lot of extra time making sure that we had a very strong draft of the PDA itself, as well as even workflows to get through all of these processes spelled out so that folks have as much certainty as they're going in to design their responses to this as possible. And with that, we'll take questions. Please feel free to use the chat if you want to drop things in, or just raise your hand. I'm going to read the question from the from the chat here, from Michael Palmari, Scott Winter mentioned the airport will not be financially involved with the project yet. The project, especially the optional segment, obviously brings significant financial value to the airport. To clarify, is it correct that the city would contribute any financial resources, short or long term, to the project? I'm going to take a little bit of swipe on that. Oh, Scott, you want to start? Go ahead. You're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry. I was just gonna say I probably should have clarified. With regard to the on-airport portion, there is the possibility within FAA regulation, so it's something that the successful proposers would have to navigate. There is the possibility that the airport could support a portion of the intra-airport portion. I mean, that is not entirely off the table. That said, we would not be pursuing this project strictly for that purpose. So, the project's got to be viable without that component. So, I would suggest that it not be considered. I guess it's probably too early in the project to rule anything out, but that's, I shouldn't have been so I guess absolute about that, because there's a lot yet to be determined, as you pointed out, Ramses, throughout this presentation. Hopefully that answers your question.
I'll add a little bit from prior conversations I've had with the airport, and Scott, please tell me if I'm misunderstanding something. But there is an expectation there will be some level of availability payment for that portion within the airport. There would be a financial involvement of the airport. Just the level of it is part of why this is an option, right? The airport wants a very clear sense of what that will cost them to get involved in that part. Is that a good way to say it?
Very, very well stated. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, keep on going here with questions in the chat from Matthew. Potential stipend for unsuccessful preferred bidder. When will this information be available? So the reason the word potential is in there is actually has to do with your bid. Again, in that financial piece of the bid, if I go back a couple slides here, so you know what I'm talking about. Here, the financial proposal. Oops. Now I'm all over the place. There we go. There is the option of bidding zero. So it's potential only because folks can bid zero, meaning they wouldn't ask for any remuneration for that development of the first phase. But again, that's up to the bidding teams how much they want to ask for in that process. All right. Another question.
Ramses, sorry, just one question, Amir from Meridian High. Just to that point, understood on that, but I guess if a bidder asks for a dollar, I think it's 0 points, right? So can you just sort of explain what the rationale is between having completely at risk and granting no points for having some cost sharing during that phase?
So it shouldn't be zero at $1, right? So it's if somebody bids zero, if any team decides to bid zero, it's graded on a scale, right? So if any team does decide to come in at zero, then they do get an advantage. Now, if other folks come in at that level, that happens as well. But if nobody does, then there's a scale of points there that happen based on, I can't remember the exact math, but it's a scale of highest to lowest there. The rationale for us really is first dollar in is the most valuable, right? And so this is a project that we will be developing a funding plan for together. And so the earlier on we can work together on that, the better. And just to be completely direct from our perspective, the developers who are willing to put in a bet early on show the kinds of project, how do I want to say this, dedication that we're really looking forward to make this work out.
Okay. Yeah, that's clear. And I guess while I have you, just another question. There was I think there was a footnote at one point in the RFP mentioning that the total project costs should not be more than $500 million. Just wondering if there's if that cap is because that's what you expect the city's contribution to be, or if, where that number comes from, and, how you define what total project costs are, because as you know, there's obviously CapEx, and then there's a series of other sort of elements when you look at a project like this. And sort of the third piece to that is how you view the role of private capital within that stack, if there is any part of that that's a subsidy.
Yeah, I'll address that from the philosophical perspective that this project is trying to come in on. We are looking to get transit delivered at a cheaper price point than we've seen in the past. And so we're really trying to push as hard as we can at the top number from day one, right? May have followed what's going on with our BART project, an incredible project that we absolutely need, but the costs are just ballooning beyond imagination. So we're really trying to push that down. We are trying to work within a given number. That is the number, 500 million is the number that is listed for this project within Plan Bay area, our regional transportation plan. It is the absolute cap of potential public money. But in the RFP, it is defined as 500 million for total CapEx for the project. That's what we would like to see. And we do mean that as the total project cost. And if nobody can come in at that, that number, we're gonna have to learn something from everybody. But we are trying to keep that project cost total there down. And again, total does mean CapEx for us here, not operating and the longer life of the project.
Okay, but just so that's clear. Thank you for that. But but you sort of mentioned so that there is an anticipated public subsidy for that 500 million.
Yes, again, we're trying to reduce that as much as possible, but there is the expectation that we will be working on a funding plan together, and we fully expect to go either state or federal funding sources to do that. And a happy note, we just got word earlier this week that federal senator, California Senator Alex Padilla has just put in an earmark for this project for a small amount, 1.5 million, to help us develop the project. So we're seeing already federal attention at the right levels to help us get there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to go back to the chat here. And again, if you have project questions you want to ask just on audio or video, just please raise your hand. But we got a few here. Another one from Michael. You mentioned during the PDA, you wanted to remain open to the technical solution. How does that fit with the RFP scoring of the technology partner, which by definition would be already selected by the proposer and included in their RFP response? Yeah, great question. This is something we really wrestled with a lot in developing this RFP. A lot of what we learned earlier in this process through our RFI, for those who followed that, was that there are new technologies out there that seem to offer a lower price for transit projects, as well as potentially higher customer value. That being said, and this is why we created the technology readiness level. A lot of those technologies are nascent, are just coming out of development and getting into delivery, except for a few that have actually seen some real world deployment. At the same time, what we have heard from folks out there is we think we can do this approach that you're taking with somewhat more traditional technologies. And so you'll see in the RFP that we have created this technology readiness level. I believe it's at level 8 or 9. I can't remember off the top of my head which level we put it at. Where above that, folks can try and commodify the technology approach later on in the project life cycle, as long as they can bring enough information into the RFP submission to fill out what's happening, right? And so, traditional APMs, for example, this is a commodified market for these kinds of technologies, right? And so basic assumptions as to what these systems are, how they work, and the kinds of support they need to deliver the RFP response could be possible. And we heard this from a few different potential partners as we were doing our market sounding and the development of this. So we made sure to be open to both sides. So that's kind of that's how we're seeing that. Question from Elliot Jameson. The slide stated that a developer will be expected to take the project through to 100% design and PDA phase 2. Based on the RFP, we had anticipated that 100% design would not come until later during the DNC implementation phase. Can you please clarify? We put 90 to 100% in that PDA phase 2 because we know that it's a little bit fungible there in terms of exactly how we're going to spell that out. And I'll pull up the slide just so we're all looking at the same thing here. There we go. All right. So two things. One, this is somewhat tentative in terms of the exact amount of design we'll get to at the end of that phase and how much we'll still need to get done in that later phase. The other thing I'll say is here in phase 1, we're going to have the design management plan decided together in that D, right? And as we get there, we'll try to figure out exactly how we're going to manage that, right? So I'll say there is some room for discussion around exactly when that level of design needs to be finished. For us, as soon as possible, done well is the right answer. But there's a lot of discussion, obviously, we need to go through to figure out, how that process is going to work. Elliot, is that satisfactory, or is there some nuance I missed there?
Hi, yeah, if you can hear me. I think I generally understand. I guess even I did see the 90 to 100%. Even at the 90 to 100%, it's quite a bit further than we would have anticipated going along with the environmental process and maybe to get to a fixed price, which we understand is the sort of two key needs during the PDA period. So understand there's some sort of room around the edges, but I think it was actually significantly further in the design process than we would have anticipated. But I appreciate your response.
Thank you. All right, question from Ben. The third project objective stated by Ramses was a scalable transit solution, and those that can't expand beyond this project are not solutions the city is looking for. Upon review of the RFP, the scoring criteria doesn't appear to reflect the weight of that statement. Can you please clarify? So we do have a technology scalability measurement in the RFP, in the actual, let's pull up this slide here, in the technology and commercial proposal. So it is in there. I can hear a bit of a, hey, maybe you didn't give it enough weight in these points to kind of really reflect that. So we're saying that now, right? I mean, I think the goals are very clear. We want projects that have the potential to scale beyond just this project. It's written throughout the RFP, that's all I can really say to that. It's intended to capture that. Brian? Yeah,
and you'll see there's some technical criteria like capacity where one is for the airport connector needs and one is for the scalability to future phases that are beyond this particular project. Those criteria are put in the RFP to capture that.
Thanks, Brian. Next question from Eugene. Will there be any stops between the airport and Diridon Station? Is it your long-term plan to expand the network to other parts of San Jose or to surrounding cities and communities? Great questions. We are open to other stops between Diridon and the airport. Again, if they add value to the project, right? Because if you're thinking about the longer-term value of the segment, you're connecting downtown to the airport. Well, downtown can be connected to other things as well. And again, there's an interesting shopping center in between there. There's a large piece of parkland that needs some development. Things to consider. Now, do we think that those are necessary? Absolutely not. They are not necessary. Again, value is value, right? If we can generate more ridership, we're generating more revenue, we're making a better commercial case. And so we're really interested in folks thinking through those puzzles within their own setup is the potential revenue from an added stop at one of these other locations enough to offset the CapEx and OpEx hits on the project ledger, and overcome that and add enough revenue to add positive to that. Kinds of questions like that we'll be asking. Second question is, are you where do you want to expand to? We're open to that question. You'll see at the RFP, we did get letters from some of our surrounding community stakeholders, in particular the San Jose Sharks, whose main facility would be directly adjacent to this segment, as well as directly across the street from Diridon Station. And they have expressed, tepid interest in the airport connector itself, but they're really interested in seeing this system expand beyond that to bring folks from the South Bay, farther reaches South Bay, into the project area. They're also interested, they have a second site south of downtown, southeast of downtown, that they have expressed interest in seeing expansion there. So there's discussions to be had there. We've also been working for a long time with our neighboring jurisdictions along Stevens Creek to build a grade separated transit solution along there. We don't have those other jurisdictions here, and they're not ready to make decisions yet. But we do have a submission and a adopted submission in the Regional Transportation Plan Bay area for that segment as well, to build all the way down to De Anza College, which is about almost 9 miles, if I remember the piece. And if you remember, this project originally started as the Stevens Creek and Airport connector. We did have to remove the Stevens Creek piece just because of the larger jurisdictional complexities. And we want to get this first segment underway before we grow into other things. So there's lots of different ideas as to where we would expand, both internally to San Jose and potentially to other regional destinations. Let's see, Eugene, is that satisfactory? Did you have some nuance there that you wanted me to touch? You good? Okay, thanks. All right, next, Jamie. What happens if a solution can't be fully demand risk based? Do allowable costs at FC financial flows exclude development fees? We are open to discussing what revenue models can be made. Development fees, I'd want to understand what you mean by development fees. That can mean a lot of different things, whether that's from other developments paying into it, making those agreements up front would be great. Anything you want to clarify, Jamie, a little bit about what development fees you're particularly interested in?
Yes, I'm here specifically talking about retribution of developers. Basically, this is a classic structure on this infrastructure projects, and basically, it's typically an amount. Basically, for what we understand is a retribution of the works we've done during the development, and in this case of PDAs, that's particularly relevant, probably. Yeah,
so remuneration to you guys. So again, what we're hoping to do here is generate enough public funds in the CapEx portion of the program of the project to create a viable project, right? So that's how we got the project in our regional transportation plan, so that we could start looking for money. And what we want to do in PDA phase 1 and 2 is really figure out how much we're going to need from that public side to make this work out. So the answer is yes. Is there ongoing operations money that we have on tap? That's a lot harder. As you all know, public operations money is a lot harder to get a hold of than CapEx. But so that's why we're putting this out as a revenue risk model, or at least one of the reasons. So yes, and there's a lot of discussion to be had there. But does that give you enough information, Jamie?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks very much. At least, understanding that you're open to discussions, that's interesting. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, next we have Colin. Does the total of 500 million include right-of-way, enabling works, and the cost of environmental approvals? Right-of-way is something that we will be negotiating the value of. It is part of the value that the city wants to bring to the table. So there's definitely some right of way that we will be offering as part of the project deal. There's some right of way that does have some rules around it based on the purchase of it, FAA rules and stuff like that around certain pieces of the land that we can't do anything about. And then if there are other private parcels, we'll have to figure that out. Enabling works and cost of environmental approval. We're really looking at CapEx for the 500 million. Environmental approvals could be considered outside of that. But enabling works, if it's digging and it's moving things around, that really should be part of the CapEx equation. Yeah, Colin, is that clear for you?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, back to Michael here to follow up on Amir's question to the PDA phase 1 cost risk.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go for it, Michael.
Yeah, no, you can skip this one. No need.
Okay, I answered it already. Thank you. All right, over to Ron Swenson. Is the route between SJC, the airport, and Diridon fixed? If not, what are the first phase route options? So it's not fixed. Great question, Ron. And nice to hear from you. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I'm going to try to get us back to one of the maps. There we go. It might not be able to see it too clearly, but there's a brown outline here around mostly the Guadalupe Gardens area and some of the commercial land on Coleman Avenue, and then a blue shape here around the Diridon Station area and SAP Center and some of the industrial lands there. We call that our route search space. We've specifically not chosen a very specific route because we believe, well, one, different technologies allow for different routes. And so we wanted to not put that up front. Different project teams approach right of way in different ways. And so we want to allow that. We've even talked to Caltrans a little bit about potentially using some of the 87 right of way. There's a lot of potential here. So that's really something we'll be working out in PDA phase 1 and 2 to really nail that down. So those are the options. They're quite broad. They're quite broad on purpose so that we're deciding together on how to do that. Brian? Just
wanted to add, yeah, that it's unusual, but the color green is the no-go space here with Columbus Park. That's we have protections in our city charter that if you touch that, it's a vote of the whole city. But so it's everything but the green.
Yeah, we highlighted that because that's new information from earlier presentations on this. All right, back to Michael.
Ramses, you answered this one as well. Just
great.
Thanks.
Great. All right. Well, that's all I have left in the chat then. Go ahead, Eugene. Wow, we can't hear you. Nope, not yet. Sometimes spacebar does it for you. There we go.
There we go. The question was safety certification. Are you under the jurisdiction of the California Public Utility Commission or some other regulatory agency?
Yeah, great question. CPUC is the safety board that we would be under.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I see another one showed up here in the chat. Some questions have already been posted in the portal, but when will those be answered? Great question. We're working to release our first batch of answers to the portal this week. We've been focusing on developing this and getting ready for this, but we should have answers later this week, potentially early next week. And after that, we're going to try to get into a 1 week to 2 week cycle of questions. We know those questions are valuable and for your time. So we're going to be answering those as quickly as possible. Mike just asked in the chat, is CPUC AHJ regardless of technology? Our understanding is yes, and our discussions with the CPUC and the like, we have understood that they are asserting authority over all passenger carrying systems. Within that now, there could be an interesting deviation from there if you're kind of a Waymo or a cruise or something like that, that's getting different kinds of authority or from DMV and the state in other ways. But we would be open to discussions around what that means, since we are playing at the edge of what technology is doing, though our understanding is that CPUC is asserting authority over pretty much anything we would do here. But again, we're trying to be open to new things. And so if there's a different regulatory environment that you understand, we're open to hearing what you have to say about that. Question from Elliot here, specifically within the CPUC, is it the rail division that will be the regulatory authority, since this is a fixed guideway project? It's a really good question, and my understanding is yes, that it is that same group, since they have the expertise. And again, we're playing with the edge of some of these technologies. Those who are working in California already might have a relationship with CPUC already in whatever test projects they have, but that is our understanding. But to some degree, we want to hear from you and your teams as to your approach to the regulatory process. Another question. Question on, let's see, who needs to verify compliance of the system with APM standards 21-13? We will ask for the information for that. Alfonso, can you actually help me with that one? And I'm going to post this. Tony posted this directly to me. I'm going to post it to everybody. I hope that's okay, Tony. And oh, they don't let you copy it out. Interesting. Alfonso, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you repeat the question, Francis, please?
Yeah. The question is, who needs to verify compliance of the system with APM standards 2113? I can't remember if we're asking for self-certification there or if we're going to.
Yeah, initially self-certification, and there are some requirements associated with how to self-certify in terms of supporting evidence and the like in the RFP and the submittal forms. Absolutely.
Thank you, Alfonso. All right, we've just hit 2 o'clock. I'll give folks just one more minute to think of any other questions. Raise your hand or drop it in the chat. Okay. Thank you all for spending the time with us today, as well as the other time that you've spent perusing this RFP and getting to know this project. We know it's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. We've been putting our work in. We know you guys are too, and we're here to keep developing this project together. We will be sharing the slides as well as a recording of this presentation on the project website. We had a lot of people show up today, so we hit our Zoom limit. So my guess is there's going to be some project team members and potentially whole project teams that were not able to do this. So there is a potential that we'll do a second meeting like this if need be, and we'd ask those who showed up the first time not show up the second time. But I think we'll probably just work from a posting. From the project team, I want to express a huge thank you, like I just did to everybody who's been working on this, but especially our consultant team at Arup, led by Alfonso Mendez, and at Ashurst, led by Anna Hermelian. It's been an incredible amount of work to get here, and we are very excited to keep it going. And with that, we'll be signing off, and thank you again.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.